Now for global business updates, Rotus Oddiri joins us. Good morning, Rotus.
Good morning, Dr. Abati. Good morning, Ayo. Good morning, Rufai. Good morning to all our viewers.
Good morning, Rotus.
A special good morning to Novak Djokovic fans around the world. We begin in Asia. They're not celebrating because the market sell-off that we saw on Friday actually deepened this morning. Asia markets, look, at one point, if you take a look at some of the breakdown of some of the markets there, you'll see that in fact, it's red across the board, right? So the Nikkei 225, you're seeing a 12% drop there. The topics also in Japan down by double digits, 12.76. At one point, the Kospi in Korea, a circuit breaker was actually triggered. Trading had to be halted for a little while before it was allowed to continue. The TAIEX in Taiwan down, the Hang Seng in Hong Kong down, the S&P ASX 200 in Australia down as well. There is a real worry about what could happen in the US, but also the yen appreciating. That, of course, impacting carry trades, global markets. In fact, Europe, I think, has opened in red territory this morning. Futures in the US, S&P 500, ASX, the NASDAQ and the Dow Jones also pointing to a negative open as well. So it's across the board. Now, we previewed jobs on Friday. Remember, the US July jobs report. Markets were expecting 177,000 jobs. It was a big miss, only 114,000. Goldman Sachs has now increased their probability of a US recession to 25%. JP Morgan has increased theirs to 50%. So if you look at the jobs breakdown for July, the main thing is the fact that it came in at 114,000. Even in June, the 206,000 jobs that were created in June, that was revised downwards to 179,000. So Jerome Powell is coming under some major criticism now that it seems like the Fed has been behind the curve. Let's take a look at some quotes from a note that was released this morning from Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan. First off, Goldman Sachs says we have increased our 12-month US recession odds to 25%. The premise of our forecast is that job growth will recover in August, and the FOMC will judge 25 basis points cut a sufficient response to any downside risk. And those are the downside risks of what has been called a hard landing, that the economy is pushed off a cliff because of these higher interest rates. They continue. They said if we are wrong and the August employment report is as weak as July, then a 50 basis points cut could be likely in September. We then go to JP Morgan. Michael Ferroli, who is the JP Morgan chief US economist, he also says in his notes that now that the Fed looks to be materially behind the curve, and that focus on that sentence because that's what a lot of market folks are saying now. Even with Powell saying data, it seems like he was focused too much on inflation and didn't look at the labor market. So Ferroli says that now that the Fed looks to be materially behind the curve, we expect a 50 basis point cut at the September meeting, followed by another 50 basis cut in November. So they are more bullish on a higher cut above 25 basis points. He says, continues in his next quote, indeed, a case could be made for an inter-meeting easing. That means it could come before September, especially if the data softens further, although Fed officials might worry about how much a move could be misinterpreted. And that means that if you're coming ahead of your next meeting in September and you cut rates, you're signaling to the markets that things are worse than we expected. The Jackson Hole Symposium is coming up later this month. Powell will be expected to make comments, and hopefully he can, soften the blow, because right now, maybe the markets are being too bearish, but you're seeing it across the board. Let's go to oil. Oil, and this is very, very key for Nigeria, because I want to talk about, broken promises on refineries. Oil has fallen to a 7-month low. It is on the back of those job reports that fell, with oil traders forecasting lower demand in the United States with higher unemployment. Also, lower industrial numbers and PMI numbers coming out from China. So when you've got the two biggest economies in the world, oil traders are fretting on lower demand. Oil prices are falling. You're seeing Brent crude and West Texas Intermediate in the lower $70 region, which is close to where Nigeria's benchmark number is. We go to President Tinubu. A lot of folks focusing on his speech. For us in the business community, we were focusing on what he was talking about with credits, what he was talking about with trying to improve food production, and also again on oil. He talked about the production rising to 1.6 million barrels per day. But if prices are falling, then it now brings to bear the issues with oil theft and the issues, I mean, Rufai and I have gone back and forth on this repeatedly, on this matter of the refineries and why they are not working and how we have not been able to save on foreign exchange. In fact, as a matter of fact, the Financial Times just released an oil report on Nigeria. It was Friday, I think. Not going to play everything for you, but just listen to this opening comment in the first 6 seconds of the report from the Financial Times.
Why Nigeria can't refine its own oil is a question that's been asked for generations.
Why Nigeria cannot refine its own oil is a question that has been asked for generations. It's a 30-minute report. You can take a look at it in your spare time. Let's go back to 2019. Mele Kyari, Group Managing Director of the NNPC, saying specifically that before Baba leaves office, we will have all 4 refineries, all refineries were working. Take a listen, 2019.
The legitimate expectation from Nigerians that why can we be an oil-producing country with 4 refineries and yet importing sometimes 100% of our petroleum product requirement? It's very sad. The GMD Emeritus has told you the steps that we have taken when the Port refinery is going to be in place. But I assure you, GMD will follow it up to make sure that within the life of this administration, before Baba's tenure ends in 2023, we'll deliver only 4 refineries.
I already heard Rufai in my microphone laughing before we even played it, and so I already know what Rufai is going to say. I mean, look, we covered this on Business Week. I encourage all our viewers out there to watch Business Week every Saturday at 10 a.m. On the Rise News channel, where we recap all that's happened during the week. We talked about this extensively. It's like a mechanic who says he's going to fix your car on Monday, then he didn't fix it. It says he'll fix it on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, then you just lose confidence. This is the focus of where things are with all that's been going on with the oil markets, these broken promises for the fix these refineries. And by the way, with President Tinubu saying that oil production has increased to 1.6, there are still reports now that the NNPC is going out to find another loan. We're trying to get clarification from them, which means you have more future production that has been encumbered. So even if your production is going up, you have a joint venture agreement with the international the IOCs. How much is left to give to a Dangote refinery, and the like? So oil is there. And don't forget, General Christopher Musa, he said that it's giving 3 months to fix oil thefts. So October is the deadline for that. Finally, Mustafa Chike-Obi, the chairman of the Bank Directors Association of Nigeria, put out a tweet late Friday saying that he's not in agreement with certain comments regarding the FX tax on banks. They're going to have a meeting up on Monday, I think next week, the 12th. So we will hear a response from the Bank Directors Association of Nigeria with respect to that FX tax. So that conversation sparked by Femi Otedola, the strong man of the capital markets, that conversation is going to continue as the days and weeks go by.
I mean, Rotus, couple of things. You know why I was laughing? Because we know what is wrong with Nigeria. Personal interest, corruption will never make those refineries work. We'll just talk and keep talking. So let's keep deceiving ourselves and hope things will change. It's never going to change. We're just going to be deluding ourselves. Real quickly, you know why I'm also laughing? The army generals now are the ones telling us how many barrels of crude oil we're producing by day. Did you see the story on the Punch this morning that they were saying we now produce 1.7 million barrels? I'm like, so when did JTF, Joint Task Force of the Military, start telling us our production? It's not OPEC any longer. And the 1.6 President Tinubu is saying, is he sure about those numbers? Really? Is that plus condensates? Because those are the people that write this speech for him. So we know all of these things. We just keep deceiving ourselves. The day we are ready to open our eyes, till today, Rotus, you asked a question the other day, and I asked this question with you, I co-ask. Why is it that all of a sudden, National Bureau of Statistics says Malta, that we didn't have any big trade volumes with in 2022, in 2023, we are now doing 2.8% of our national trade, over 1 trillion trade with Malta. What happened? Nobody can seem to solve the riddle. NMPs just said, Lawambe, my hand is not there. That's it. So nobody can come up with answers for us as regards what's happening with Malta. So we are just a bunch of deceivers and, I was saying the other day, Rotus, I dare every ED in NMPC, to bring their asset forward for verification.
All right. So
transparency.
Rotus, let me finish your story with regards to the mechanic and the timelines. So when you tell the mechanic, he says by Monday your car will be ready and it's not ready, what do you do? The money I gave you, what did you do with it? Because I gave you the money, all that you asked me, because I felt that finally my car will be working. In December of 2023, a statement was released and a big show. In fact, there was a ceremony, and some money was also spent for the ceremony that took people to Port Harcourt to launch or to view or to celebrate the mechanical completion of the Port Harcourt refinery. And they said that it's going to be ready, was 88% done. Phase 5 was what was done, and that was the most critical aspect of it. And by March, it would be working. By the end of March, we start to see. In fact, in a March interview, a report says the MD of NNPCL had said that 450,000 barrels of crude had been transported to the Port Harcourt refinery because they were ready to go. That was March. This is August, let's say end of July. That 7 minus 3, 4 months has gone by, nothing has been said. And that's why it takes me back to the conversation when I'd mentioned that how can we trust new milestones when the previous milestones weren't met and no one is investigating or asking questions? That if you gave a timeline and said, because they said $1.5 billion of Nigeria's money went into that project, and you're not able to meet deadlines despite the fact that you gave us specific timelines, then we should begin to ask questions. Why? What is the reason? Why can't the refineries work? What is let this not be another, Majakuta steel factory situation where we keep pumping money, promises are being made as to when it will happen, and nothing is being done. If we don't fix these issues, then let's not talk about oil and oil production and the transparency or the honesty of NNPCL in this matter. I'm hoping that this will be a call to the NNPCL to give Nigerians, because Nigerians deserve to know the truth. What happened? Why? Fine, people set deadlines in project management and it doesn't work out. But there are reasons why, and a new deadline is set. We deserve to know the reason why. That's the question I'm asking this morning.
Okay, let me talk about the global sell-off, because there is some commotion. As you have tried to indicate, the Nasdaq has gone down by about 1.5%. Dow Jones has gone down. Oil prices have fallen. Gold has fallen. Cryptocurrency has fallen. And this morning in Asia, all the stocks have gone down. Two things responsible for this in the last few days for this global sell-off. The first is the non-farm payrolls that came in on Friday in the United States at about 114,000, below consensus estimates. And, as a result of that, there is now fear about a likely recession in the world's biggest economy. So that's why you have that, effect, across the world. And secondly, now people are saying, the U.S. is not likely to cut rates very soon. After all, Jerome Powell has always been talking about data. The data that came in on Friday suggested a weakening of the American economy with all the reverberations that we have seen. The second issue has to be with the Bank of Japan taking a decision on Wednesday to adjust its monetary policy. They used to be within the range of 0 to 0.1%, but they now decided to increase the rate to 0.25%. Now that is also causing problems in America, because what it means is that the carry trade cannot work again. The carry trade simply means investors invest in the Japanese yen, and then, they get the advantage, they go and trade the advantage in the US market, and they make more money. But the Japanese, the Bank of Japan, now adjusting the yen, are strengthening the yen, and that has an effect, particularly on global trade and on investment. So these are the two major issues, in my view, over the weekend. Even the bond yield in the US has gone down, simply because there was something in Japan. Japan and the other Asian countries have also adjusted in terms of their stock market because of the interconnectedness of the global market space. As for Nigeria, well, you say Mr. Mele Kyari, Engineer Mele Kyari, is promising that the refineries will be completed within the tenure of President Tinubu. Well, this is not new. We have heard it before. I think the bigger story is that we have seen some people in the media say, Mele Kyari is the problem with Nigerian oil and gas industry. So you have had people putting up advertisement for and against. No, Mele Kyari is not the problem. There are fundamental issues with the oil and gas industry in Nigeria that have been there since the 70s and that no government has been able to address. So it's not about crucifying one individual. What Mele Kyari, in my understanding, is trying to do is that we can solve the problem. We will make an effort to solve the problem. But to assume that one man is the cause of the problem will be unfair, will be wrong, and will not be a reasonable way to go. So those members of the National Assembly who are saying they want Mele Kyari's head, no, they have their own heads in the wrong place. It's not the cause of the problem. Nigeria and the way we have run our affairs so far is the problem. Leadership is what is required. So the ball is back in the court of the leaders. Thank you very much.